Rose felt a mix of fear and excitement as she navigated her way through the city, clutching the old letter like a lifeline. She had no plan, no idea how she would approach her father after all these years, but she knew she had to see him, to look him in the eye and tell him that his daughter was still alive. When she finally arrived at the towering headquarters of Capital Oil, her heart skipped a beat. The building was imposing, a symbol of wealth and power that felt worlds away from the life she had known. Rose hesitated at the entrance, feeling a surge of doubt. How could she, a simple village girl, belong to this world of luxury and influence? But then she remembered her mother's words. She was the heiress of this empire, the daughter of Chief Emeka Okafor. She had every right to be here. Taking a deep breath, Rose walked through the glass doors, trying to ignore the stares of the well-dressed employees who passed her by. When she approached the front desk, the receptionist barely glanced up at her. "Can I help you?" the woman asked, her tone very dismissive. "I'm here to see Chief Emeka Okafor," Rose replied, trying to keep her voice steady. The receptionist raised an eyebrow, looking Rose up and down with a sneer. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked. Rose said, "No, but—" "Then you have to leave," the receptionist interrupted her, her tone very icy. "The chief doesn't see walk-ins, especially not ones dressed like that." The cold dismissal stung, but Rose swallowed her pride. "Please, it's urgent. I'm his—" Before she could finish her sentence, the receptionist turned away, already moving on to the next person in line. Rose stood there, feeling humiliated and lost. She had come all this way only to be turned away like she was nothing. But as she stood there, the reality of her situation sank in. She was a stranger in her own father's company, unknown and unrecognized. If she wanted to reclaim her place, she would have to do it on her own terms. She turned on her heel and walked out of the building, determination hardening in her heart. If they won't let her in as herself, she would find another way. Now, how did all this begin? Let's story back. Once upon a time, in a village called Onam, there lived a young, beautiful girl called Rose. That morning, the morning sun filtered through the thin curtains of Rose's small bedroom, casting a soft glow over the worn wooden floor. Rose Okafor stared at her reflection in the cracked mirror, feeling like a stranger in her own skin. The woman staring back at her looked ordinary, nothing more than a simple village girl with tired eyes and a withered heart. But deep inside, Rose felt an unsettling pull, as though she had been living a life that didn't belong to her. She absent-mindedly traced the outline of a faded scar on her wrist, a reminder of a childhood accident she could barely recall. There were so many gaps in her memory, so many questions she had never been able to answer. But the people who raised her had always been tight-lipped, telling her only what she needed to know to survive. Today, however, was different. Today, she would demand the truth. It was her aunt's coffin that pulled Rose from her thoughts. She quickly crossed the room, finding her aunt, an old woman with graying hair and a frail body, struggling to sit up in bed. "Auntie, you shouldn't try to move. Let me get your medicine," Rose said gently, helping her aunt settle back against the pillows. "No, Rose," her aunt rasped, clutching her hand with surprising strength. "There's something more important. Something I've kept from you for too long." Rose felt a chill run down her spine. "What is it, Auntie?" The old woman's eyes, once sharp and commanding, now held a softness that Rose hadn't seen before. She reached under her pillow and pulled out a small, withered envelope, its edges frayed with age. The initials E.O. were scrawled on the front in faded ink. "This letter, it's from your mother," her aunt whispered, pressing the envelope into Rosie's trembling hands. "You were meant to have it long ago, but I was afraid of what would have happened to you if you knew." Rose stared at the envelope, her heart pounding in her chest. Her mother, the woman she had been told had died when she was a baby. She had longed for any connection to her past, and now it was sitting in her hands, heavy with the weight of secret untold. "Read it, Rose," her aunt urged, her voice breaking with emotion. "It's time you knew the truth." With trembling fingers, Rose carefully opened the envelope, unfolding the delicate piece of paper inside. The handwriting was neat, most elegant, but there was a sense of urgency in the words, as though they had been written in a moment of desperation. "My dearest Rose, if you're reading this, it means that the time has come for you to learn who you truly are. My heart aches, knowing that I had to leave you, but I had no choice. Your father and I had to protect you from the dangers that surrounded us. Our world was filled with enemies who would stop at nothing to harm us, and we couldn't bear the thought of you being caught in the crossfire. Your father, Chief Emeka Okafor, is a man of great honor and integrity. He built Capital Oil with his own hands, turning it into one of the most powerful companies in Nigeria. But with that power came threat that forced us to send you away, to keep you hidden where they could never find you. It broke our heart to part with you, but it was the only way to keep you safe. If you are reading this, then you must find your way back to your father. He needs you now more than ever. The company we built is in danger, and only you can save it. Reclaim your place in our family, Rose. You are the heiress to Capital Oil, and your father's legacy now rests in your hands. With all my love, your mother." Rosie's hands shook as she finished reading the letter. Her mother's words echoed in her mind, filling the gaps in her past with startling clarity. She had spent her entire life believing she was an orphan, raised by distant relatives out of pity, but now she knew the truth. She was the daughter of one of Nigeria's most prominent men, the rightful heiress to an empire she had never ever known existed. Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at her aunt, who was watching her with a mix of sorrow and relief. "Why? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Rose asked, her voice trembling. "We thought it was for the best, Rose," her aunt replied, her voice heavy with regret. "Your parents wanted to protect you, to keep you safe from those who would harm you. But the world is a dangerous place, and secrets have a way of finding their way to the surface." Rose clutched the letter to her chest, her mind racing. Everything she had known, everything she had been told, turned upside down. But one thing was clear: she couldn't stay in this village anymore. She had to go to Lagos to find her father and confront the legacy she had been hidden from for so long. She had to reclaim her identity and save the company that her parents had sacrificed so much to protect. The bustling streets of Lagos were a far cry from the quiet village where Rose had spent most of her life. The noise, the people, the chaos, it was overwhelming, yet strangely invigorating. The next time Rose stepped into Capital Oil, she wore the uniform of a cleaner. Her once vibrant hair was tucked under a cap, and her clothes were old and worn. She has taken on the persona of Grace, a humble cleaner looking for work. This time, no one gave her a second glance as she entered the building. She was invisible, just another face in the crowd. But that was exactly what she wanted. She needed to see the company from inside, to understand its workings and uncover the truth about what had happened in her father's absence. As Grace, or Rose, started working in the lower levels of the company, scrubbing floors and emptying trash cans, it was grueling work, but it gave her access to places where the real stories were told. The break rooms, the service corridors, the spaces where employees felt free to speak their minds. She overheard conversations about corrupt practices, about how the company had changed since Chief Okafor had fallen ill, the names of the key players in the corruption, Mr. Adewale, Mrs. Ekanem, and even Mr. Olumide, came up time and again. Rose listened carefully, noting every detail, every scrap of information that could help her later. But it wasn't just the corruption that shocked her, it was the way the employees were treated, like disposable tools rather than humans. The sense of community that her father had once fostered was gone, replaced by fear and distrust. One day, while cleaning the office of a junior manager, Rose found a framed photograph on the desk. It was an old photo of her father, smiling warmly as he stood in front of Capital Oil logo. Tears filled her eyes as she realized just how much had been lost since that photo was taken. But Rose was not one to be defeated. She knew she had to do this. She would expose the corruption, confront those who had betrayed her father, and restore Capital Oil to its former glory. And when the time was right, she would reveal her true identity, not just to her father, but to everyone who had doubted her. As Rose delved deeper into the company's secret, she found herself growing close to a fellow cleaner, a young man named James. He was kind and hardworking, always willing to help Rose with the more difficult tasks. They became fast friends, and Rose found herself confiding in him more than she had intended. Unknowing to Rose, he was an informant planted by Mr. Olumide to keep an eye on the staff. When he discovered Rose's true identity, he saw an opportunity to climb the ranks by betraying her. One evening, after Rose had gathered enough evidence to expose the corruption within the company, she met James in a secluded part of the building to share her plans. "James, I'm not who you think I am," Rose began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm Chief Emeka Okafor's daughter. I came here to uncover the truth about what's happening in this company." James' eyes widened in surprise, but he quickly masked it with concern. "Rose, that's incredible. But you have to be careful though. If the wrong people finds out, you could be in danger." "I know," Rose said, her voice filled with determination. "But I can't stay silent. My father's legacy is at stake. I have enough evidence now to confront those responsible. I'm going to reveal everything." James nodded, his expression serious. "You're right, Rose, but let me help you. I'll make sure you're protected when you confront them." Rose smiled, grateful for his support. "Thank you, James. I don't know what I'd do without you." But as she walked away, James' smile faded. He pulled out his phone and sent a quick text to Mr. Olumide. "We have a problem. She knows everything," he wrote in the text. The next day, Rose was summoned to the boardroom under the pretense of cleaning before a meeting. When she arrived, she was surprised to find Mr. Olumide, Mrs. Ekanem, and Mr. Adewale already there, seated around the table with cold, calculating expressions. "Grace, isn't it?" Mr. Olumide said, his voice dripping with false kindness. "Please have a seat." Confused, Rose hesitated but then sat down, her heart pounding in her chest. Something wasn't right. "We know who you truly are, Rose," Mr. Olumide continued, his tone turning icy. And we know what you've been doing. Rosie's blood ran cold. She looked around the room, realizing too late that she had been betrayed. You think you can come in here, play dress up and take over your father's company? Mrs. Ekanem sneered. You're just a naive girl who has no idea how the real world works. Your father trusted us to run this company, Mr. Adewale added, leaning forward with a sinister smile. And that's exactly what we are going to do. You have no place here, Rose. It's time you accepted that. But Rose wasn't the one to back down, so she stood up, meeting their glares with unwavering determination. Listen, you old fools. My father built this company with integrity and honor. He trusted you and you betrayed him. I may be young, but I'm not naive. I have evidence of everything you've done. Embezzlement, fraud, corruption, and I will make sure it all comes to light. The room fell silent, tension cracking in the air. Mr. Olumide's expression darkened, but before he could respond, the door burst open and Chief Emeka Okafor himself walked in, flanked by security guards. Rose, he called, his voice filled with a mixture of shock. Rose turned to face her father, tears welling in her eyes. Yes, Dad, it's really me. Chief Okafor embraced his daughter tightly, his heart swelling with emotion. I thought I had lost you, he whispered, but you've come back, and you've saved us all. He turned to the board members, his expression hardening. You've all been exposed for the snakes you are. Security, escort them out. I want them out of this building, and I want legal action taken immediately. As the corrupt executive were led away, Rose felt a surge of relief. The nightmares was finally over. She had reclaimed her identity, saved her father's company, and ensured that justice was served. In the weeks that followed, Rose took her place as the rightful heir to Capital Oil. The company underwent a massive overhaul with new leadership and renewed commitment to the values that Chief Emeka had instilled from the very beginning. Rose worked tirelessly alongside her father, learning the ins and outs of the business, and slowly but surely, the company began to regain its former glory. Employees were treated with respect, and the toxic culture that had taken root was eradicated. But more than everything, Rose felt a sense of belonging she had never known before. She had found her place, not just as the daughter of a powerful man, but as a leader in her own right. The journey had been long and filled with hardships, but it had led her to where she was always meant to be. As she stood at the helm of Capital Oil, looking out over the city of Lagos, Rose knew that this was just the beginning. The future was bright, and she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Because she was no longer the simple village girl who had once stared in a cracked mirror, wondering who she was. She was Rose Okafor, the heiress of Capital Oil, and she was home. This story teaches that destiny can only be delayed, but it can never be denied. Whatever is made for you, if you put in the work, the energy required, the determination, and you put God first, everything will definitely work out for your own good. I am rooting for you, and I hope you're also rooting for yourself. I hope you enjoyed this story, because I did. Kindly click the subscription button, turn on the post notification bell, so that when amazing stories like this are posted, you will be the first to know. Kindly like and share, so others will learn the importance of diligence and determination. Till the next story lovers, enjoy your day. Bye.